Hey, welcome back to another week of Zenbird Lives. We share news, columns, and interviews coming out from Japan about sustainability. Well, honestly, we're still splashing water around, so there's going to be a number of changes, and we're going to be trying something new today also. So today what we're going to do is we're going to be doing an overview of Zenbird articles. We have 4 today. 1, the danger of the decline of honeybees in Japan. Sustainable sunscreens, because it's summer, and tips from ancient Japan to cool yourself against the summer heat. And finally, how meat alternatives can lower greenhouse gases. Right, so we'll be doing overviews rather than last week's style of podcast. This way we can squeeze in more articles, and this week we have prepared 2 articles. One about how plastic recycling doesn't work, and the other, climate doomism. We'll get to that when we get to that, but we'll start with our first article titled, How Will Japan Protect the Dramatic Decline of Honeybees? I'm told the writer's family is interested in starting a bee farm, so this is something that is timely. And it seems that, honeybee population is declining in Japan. The article starts out reminding us that bee pollination is responsible for 70% of the 100 crop species that accounts for 90% of the world's food. And in recent years, however, numerous cases of mass disappearance of honeybees have been reported around the world. If left unchecked, this could affect crop quality and use, eventually causing a serious food crisis. Now, Japan also faces a decline in the number of honeybees. Reasons include lack of nectar sources from natural disasters and cutting of thickets to make room for solar panels. There's the use of harmful pesticides and herbicides, which are banned overseas but not banned in Japan yet. And of course, diseases. The writer talked to a beekeeper in Chiba named Shohei Kanari, who conducts beekeeping courses. So he shares that there are 2 things that we probably need to tackle. One is the current beekeeping methods. They need to be improved, and there's also a need for governmental support. The article ends, of course, reminding us of the importance of the conservation of the bees, especially honeybees in Japan. Now, many of you are not a stranger to the problem of the loss of biodiversity. But I think it's important for us to know that there are solutions. But what kind of solutions you might be asking? In Japan, sure, we have a lot of rural areas. Maybe we can implement something there. But what about, us who are living in urban spaces? Well, urban sprawls also need to care about the bee population too. And there are solutions. For example, Tokyo is already implementing solutions there. We've talked about this before. So there are various projects like the Ginza Honeybee Project, the Columbine, and Koto City Honey Project. Now, solutions are available, so we just need to scale them. And of course, definitely increase the awareness about the threat to honeybees. So let's move on to our next article. And this next article is titled, not this one, sorry. 4 sustainable sunscreen brands from Japan for this summer's outings. It's a straightforward piece introducing 4 sunscreens that are safe for the ocean, for fishes, for corals. But when you read this, don't only pay attention to the ingredients, but also to the packaging, like the use of craft paper, like from Save Me, the brand Save Me. Now it's hard to imagine, sunscreen in craft paper, but it is done, ladies and gentlemen. It is possible. I think it's a good role model for other brands too. Now, one thing to note is that there are many harmful substances in many sunscreens, right? And sunscreens can contain oxybenzone and various metal oxides that is harmful to ocean life. And this is why Japanese beauty products are often so popular, because they usually use natural ingredients. And that means it has low environmental impact on the environment, and because of that, they are gentle on the skin too. So if you have sensitive skin, now I'm not saying all Japanese beauty products, in fact sunscreens are going to be good for sensitive skin, but there are options. For example, we also introduced here the Mama Baby the UV absorber free to care for sensitive skin and babies. So if you have sensitive skin, definitely check that out. Okay, third article. Right, let's go on to this one. How ancient Japanese stayed cool using 5 senses during summer. I think this is important because summer is coming and the heat is coming. So with global warming, climate crisis on our minds, how can we avoid switching the air conditioner on? And this article shows us traditional ways the Japanese has used to mitigate the heat, in a way tricking our senses. Like how? Well, one example the article introduces to us is hurin, right here, which uses our hearing. A hurin is a small chime used for hanging under the eaves of Japanese houses. They make a light sound when the wind blows and soothe us with their pleasant irregular tones. Now there are other ways like tactile and the sense of smell. So what I really like about this article is how it reflects the work Zenbird does. We always find this ancient Japanese wisdom that we can use to tackle modern problems. And one thing we keep mentioning on our online magazine is how Japan used to be sustainable, how it used to be carbon neutral or regenerative, how it used to be a circular economy. And now we have a wisdom to tackle heat, and yeah. So let's go on to our last article for this week. Yeah, this is the one. This article is called Meat Alternatives to Help Reduce Greenhouse Gas Emissions, and gives us an idea of how the food industry is responsible for a large amount of greenhouse gases. Alright, so food production produces 26% of greenhouse gas emissions. With that, livestock and fish farming, land use for livestock, and crops for animal feed accounts for 53% of food-related emissions. How about in Japan? In Japan, combined greenhouse emissions from farming and transportation of fish, chicken, pork, and beef accounts for about 65% of total greenhouse gas emissions in Japan. Now that's a huge amount. So this article goes on to explain that a balanced meal doesn't really need to include meat. For example, we can replace protein and iron from meat with those from vegetables like high protein chickpeas. And of course, our writer gives us some examples of what kind of meat alternatives are available. You might be thinking insects, but there are more options than that, like plant-based meats, fake meat, and there's even fake eggs. I remember reading this article. We talked about this, I think, a few weeks ago. We saw an article that mentioned, total greenhouse gas emissions. Accounts. Meat accounts for 70% of total greenhouse gas emissions. What? That is not possible. If it was true, I think we will have gotten this global warming well under control. But yeah, that's not true. But it is true that by reducing meat consumption reducing meat consumption in our diets can help us buy time on the climate cloud, increase our carbon budget, and help definitely remove greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. When we talk about food, it's usually about methane, which is 25 to 30 times worse than carbon dioxide in terms of greenhouse gas effect. Greenhouse effect, not greenhouse gas effect. Alright, so that ends of this week's internal articles. Let's go on to our 2 external articles. Okay. Alright, so This one comes from The Atlantic, titled Plastic Recycling Doesn't Work and Will Never Work. There is a heavy focus on America in this article, but I think Japan shares the same concerns. It opens by telling us that recycling works. Recycling works, but just not for plastic. The problems come with the difficulty in identifying and separating the different types of plastic in daily products that we consume. I mean, when we look at products, I don't think we actually know what types of PET material it is. I mean, there's so many types of plastics that are used in different types of products. That's the same for paper, actually. And even plastics also contain toxic chemicals. The biggest gripe the authors have with the material is the myth that the material is actually recyclable. This is where they draw similarity to tobacco industry's strategy of misleading the public. That recycled plastics is better for the environment, and this mirrors tobacco industry's lie, which is, of course, filtered cigarettes are healthier than non-filtered cigarettes. Now, I thought this article is important because even in Japan, there's a lot of greenwashing going on. If you look at just the drink industry, PET bottles, a lot of brands are saying, "Oh, we are using recycled plastics, so now we are eco-friendly." I don't think they really understand what when we talk about sustainability, when we talk about SDGs, when we talk about biodegradable material. Biodegradable doesn't actually mean that it's compostable. So that's one of the big issues. And at the end of the day, there's no motivation or creativity to change things. So and that impacts consumer consumption pattern too, because there's no encouragement to change it. So what's the solution then? Well, the article suggests that we stop wasting time on fake campaigns and expenditures and work on effective policies, real policies, environmental positive policies. I'll also suggest that we as consumers learn and understand what we consume. I'm not trying to shift the responsibility to consumers, but I think that we need to learn so that we can come together, stand in solidarity against these greedy companies. Right, and let's jump into our next article. So our last article for today is from The Guardian. The title of the article is Climatologist Michael E Mann, Good People Fall Victim to Doomism. I do too sometimes. It is an eye-opening interview with climate scientist Michael into the so-called climate war against fossil fuel industry and climate change deniers. In this interview, Michael also talks about a relatively new term called climate doomism. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, here. Right smack in the middle of the page. So climate doomism is a sense of doom, a sense of helplessness in the face of the climate crisis. You might call it the stage after eco-anxiety, where we start losing hope to fight for the change to improve our climate. And it's actually normal to feel eco-anxiety and doomism sometimes. Even Michael admits to it. But Michael reveals to us that there is doom-mongering. Doom-mongering has overtaken denial as a threat and as a tactic. Inactivists know that if people believe that there is nothing you can do, they are led down a path of disengagement. They unwittingly do the bidding of fossil fuel interests by giving up. So what is pernicious about this is that it seeks to weaponize environmental progressives who will otherwise be on the front line demanding change. These folk of good intentions and goodwill, but they become disillusioned or depressed, and they fall into despair. However, the too late narratives are invariably based on a misunderstanding of science. So, why did I want to bring up why did I want to talk about climate doomism today? Why did I choose this article is because it's something that we talked about before. We talk about how we can tackle eco anxiety, and effectively there are two ways: learn about it, it as in learn how to what the issues are, to understand the science behind it, and two, to take action, to take climate action. And doomism should be the same. And I personally, I feel that climate doomism is kind of irrelevant. The emotions are real, and I think we need to understand that. But to say that we should give up because there is no hope, it just doesn't make sense. There are 4 reasons for this. Now, if we have love for our planet, even if it's just a little, we do anything, no matter how small, to act. And 2, we need to have solutions, and we have solutions. It's just obstacles that are standing in our way. Usually, politicians, greedy businessmen who are in our way, and we need to crush these industries, crush these people out of our society, which we want to build sustainably. And 3, we have united before globally. We have united in face of against the ozone, the hole in our ozone layer. We have, we've seen how Fridays for Future have united all the youths around the world to march against climate. And now we can, if we can unite. And doomism is this new tactic that tries to disencourage would-be fighters. And number 4, we have lived sustainably before. We can go back to that. If you have followed Zenbird, our online magazine, then you will have realized how often we talk about Japan used to be sustainable. It used to be carbon positive. It was regenerative. It had a circular economy. And now that we have advanced technology, we can go back to such days. And so it's kind of irrelevant to say that there is no more hope, so we should not act. I think it's okay to feel anxiety or doomism sometimes, but there's no reason to give up. Again, learn about things, take climate action, connect with us, connect with your local group, your local environmental groups. Change is possible, and I think that should be the takeaway. And yeah, that comes to the end of today's stream. Well, it's not really a stream, it's a pre-recording. Like I shared, moving from place to place is kind of hard to find quiet places and stable Wi-Fi. So we thought for now, this is the best way we can do things. And I hope this format works. We'll be trying a lot of things, like I said in the beginning. There's going to be a lot of changes. It won't be consistent for now until we discover what you like to watch, whether it's useful. We might even stop the stream and concentrate on doing recordings if that's what is useful for all of you. And yeah, that comes to the end of our today's this week's stream. We'll see you next week. And again, it is the weekend. Recharge so that you continue fighting the good fight. And we'll see you when we see you.